Just to get started, so the film Tony is a coming of age story. Now I want to take it back to your coming of age story, take it back to the beginning. I'm talking about Toronto. I'm talking about Erindale Secondary School. I'm talking about the blue collar tweakers.
Oh my
Um,
God.
I guess what was, I guess, what are your memories of your adolescence, but specifically around music?
Um, I, I, oh, wow, that is really bringing me back and a way to drop some real, uh, Nardwuar type gotcha moments of just like, what? How did you know that? Um, yeah, Blue Collar Tweakers being the first band I ever had, and had that with it was basically just me and my friend Tom that were really big into Ben Folds Five and the first songs that I ever wrote, and it was basically like trying to sound like Ben Folds because I think Ben Folds was the very first music that I heard that sort of made piano cool. Um, there was something a little more adolescent about and angsty about that piano rock as opposed to, the Billy Joel and Elton John of like my parents that they would like them, but they didn't know anything about the sort of more punk piano of Ben Folds slamming down his fists on the keys. So I do remember that being a real uh, awakening, is being like, oh, piano could be cool with Ben Folds. Um, and I also at that time started to like actually really get turned on to film scoring, film scores, and I started to just sort of tell people and put that goal and wear it on my sleeve and be like, I'm gonna compose music for movies. And I had no idea what that really entailed. I just know that I really liked it. I paid attention to music in movies. And it actually is what brought me to meeting Matt Johnson because he went to a different high school as me, but his girlfriend went to my high school. And she knew me as somebody that was sort of like, the Mr. Piano Man and saying like, I want to do music for movies. And she said to me one time, she's like, my boyfriend is making a film and you should do the music for it. You should meet him. He's really funny. You're funny too. And they put us together and Matt and I became like instant friends. And it's just funny that that's how we met. When you think childhood friends, you think, well, you met on the schoolyard. It's like, no, even when we were like 14 or 15, we met in the professional capacity that we still work in today.
Yeah, 100%. And I think like yeah, I was about to say too, like, well, yeah, I was going to touch upon you guys meeting in like through his ex-girlfriend at the time in high school. I'm presuming ex-girlfriend.
Yeah,
Is Toronto like a place that's like a big small town? You know, like it's a big town, but it's also it feels small. Like
it
everyone kind
is
of knows.
in pockets, like in certain like maybe bigger cliques or like certain like if you're in an indie band in Toronto, you're gonna meet all the indie bands in Toronto of your general age group. And I think that, you know, Toronto West, yeah, is pretty, you'll run into the same people. It's pretty nice like that. It's not too big, not too small,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it feels funny. Before we jump onto Tony, it's funny. Like in Australia, it feels like our exposure to Toronto is either Drake or more my Toronto that I view it as like broken social scene, metric, like that indie rock version of Toronto. Um.
That's what really brought me to Toronto was the scene of just indie music and broken social scene and metric and you know them sort of carving a real space for that crowd did a lot, I think, for the city, getting just validated as something that was culturally relevant. That it certainly made it seem like a relevant place when I was moving back from. I went to music school in Boston, and I wasn't sure if I was going to stay there, and I wasn't particularly excited about moving to Toronto, the city that I grew up right next to, being from the suburbs there. I'd really only known Toronto as a place to go and watch the baseball game, with my dad when I was a kid. And there's nothing really culturally there that was pulling me. But in that sort of early 2000s time, the broken social scene gang and Sloan and that whole pipeline of people, and Feist, it sort of just made it feel alive with something. And sure enough, when I got there, there were a bunch of indie bands that were sort of rubbing shoulders with them, and I sidle up and eventually befriend some of them, and they would know some of the same people from Sloan and Broken Social Scene, and um, I joined some indie bands over the years, and then all the way up until now being pretty good pals with Broken Social Scene and Metric. If you want to talk about, the small townness of it all, like I know all these people now and have worked with them, and happy to report that seeing that through is so great because they're the real deal. It's like not only is there just so much talent in the city, the philosophy of the music and the spirit is something that just aligns with me so much. Like I didn't find that in Boston really. There was an amazing world there of it being a real hub of an international space where people were coming from everywhere to just celebrate music, and it was so jazzy and really classical. But the indie scene there was nothing like what I found in Toronto, and so that became a real formative time for me to become the musician I was. I became such a better musician through meeting people in Toronto, and it really formed how I write and compose.
Speaking of that, in terms of writing and composing, we're going to jump forward to Tony now.
Yeah,
So I guess like, because I know nothing about composing a score or like for a film. What are those initial steps like, especially with a project like Tony and with a person like Bourdain? Even though the film is kind of not one for one exactly like Bourdain, but I mean in the sense like, are there any special considerations you take specifically with someone so beloved?
it was a
And
huge
Hmm.
task, like beloved by me. Matt has admittedly said publicly, like, look, I wasn't really that familiar with Bourdain. Like, he kind of downloaded everything and caught up making the story, and he found a lot of personal things that he was connecting to him to do his role in this. My role, I suppose you could say, it was personal in just the sense that I had a high standard for myself to capture something that um, was worthy of his gravity and how much of a pedestal I've put the man in my life. And much like the movie story is, I feel like I was protected in the sense that I didn't need to score his whole life. I didn't need to represent like what he was in a way that people already know who he was. I didn't want to sound like his TV show theme songs or anything. I just wanted something to sort of represent the sort of like how distinguished he comes across. Like how I pictured him at 19, sure, being in his adolescence, and I'm sure, and an angry, thoughtless young lout, badly in need of a good ass kicking. But even in that, he was sort of like this sort of distinguished man. You know what I mean? Like an old man in a young man's body. Like there was something so just hard, tested, and true about him. It's hard to put into words. The hardest part about the process was just the beginning, as it is with all film scores. It's just finding those notes, and it's a code that takes a long time to crack. And then once you do, it becomes your entry point into the orbit of wherever you need the score to go. But it's just a lot of trial and error and being very honest with yourself and being your own worst critic, and just doing it over and over again until something rhymes with the spirit that you know is here. And you just keep trying until the images just align, and hopefully you play it back and it just feels right. It's just a feel thing. You can't even really describe it. It just feels right.
Yeah, I was about to say, speaking of those kind of notes, I'm gonna look here so I don't get the names of the song wrong. But like, One thing that stunned me about the score is that somehow it feels like you distilled youth and nostalgia down to a couple notes. And it's these couple repeating notes. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but like in songs like The Meaning of Providence, A Day in the Life of a Writer, Only Came to See You. I was gonna hum the notes out, but I don't want to embarrass myself in front of you. But
Yeah,
like, does that feel like such an aha moment when you get that?
definitely, definitely does. You wait for the aha. Sometimes you trick yourself and you hope you want to find it so bad you think I think this is an aha moment, but you have to just keep pushing until it's such an aha moment that you realize it can't be anything else. Like you discover it, and then you could still go for more, but you'll end up like the scent will go dry. Like it'll get weak. So it's yeah, it's a process of just kind of like searching in the dark for something until you find the light, and then once it's on, um, you can kind of see the whole thing.
Yeah. And I guess as a very last question to wrap things up, to make it full circle one more time. As you were saying, your longtime collaborator, Matt Johnson, you scored this film, but you guys have worked numerous times together, especially on the breakout. Well, I guess from our side of the world, the breakout Nirvana, the band that showed the movie. And you guys met in high school. And I feel like there's a lot of like, I don't know, overlap with this film, and especially if you know the life of Bourdain. I don't know, there's all these things kind of come together from youth to adulthood. Does it feel surreal that you guys are still doing it together, like after all these decades?
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, yes. I think I think that we can, if we were honest, we would probably admit that we knew that when we met each other that we had a deep connection and similar tastes where we were able to kind of really hear each other's full magnitude of what we had in us all along. Like I feel like Matt saw in me a comedy partner and a musician that he could fully hear. He could hear all of what I was laying down, where maybe other people could hear some or get a sense of like and say, well, clearly you're a talented musician, but like, can you hear all the intricate thing? Can you hear the tricks that I'm doing? Do you know what I'm doing here? I think that, Matt could on some level hear that. I think that I, with him, sort of really was able to identify that here's a guy who not only is just hilarious, he's got a lot of intention with what he's doing. And I think that, I'm going to believe when he does things and believe in a project that he's going to put himself behind. Um, you know, there's and we're both very considered uh, people in practice too. The way we have a process that right away when we started even messing around with projects when we were young, we would talk very deeply about it. We wouldn't want to just throw it away, and we didn't have the type of attitude to say, ah, that's good enough. Like we both found in each other, I guess, like perfectionism that obviously had made us get better over time. Like we still made some total shit when we were young, like, but that's the best we could do then. We certainly were like trying our very hardest. We try very hard and work together, and so we egg each other on. That's been sort of a thing with this whole gang that we have now is that everyone works really, really hard, and it's a thing about I think this whole industry is very impressive that like people work really hard, but particularly I just noticed that we are not shy from being our own worst critics and letting that be a feature, not a bug, really leaning
Yeah,
on.
for sure. Um, oh, congratulations on Tony, Jay. And congratulations on the beautiful work. It's such a beautiful score.
That means a lot. Thank you so much.
I was listening to it all yesterday. I was just walking around Sydney. I was in my
Yeah.
own coming of age story.
Yeah, it's nice, just easy, sort of like, oh, that makes me think, a little reflective time, right?
Yeah, it makes me reflect on shooting a tuna I never did. I was like,
Yeah,
maybe I don't have that memory.
maybe you
Yeah.
will.
Congratulations and thank you for the time.
Okay, thank you.